get started for the, now what's the topic? Setting up a virtual mobile law office tonight. And I'll introduce myself, and Kirk, why don't you start off introducing yourself as a panelist?
All right, so David invited me to join all of you, so I appreciate the invitation and the opportunity to be here. I'm the President and CEO of Bay Computing Group. We're located right here in this building. We're a technology service provider that services small and medium businesses throughout the Bay Area for their outsourced IT needs.
And I'm David Pearson. I'm an attorney locally in Walnut Creek and Fresno, general outside corporate counsel. And you're David Jordan, right? I think I've done a case with you. Some of the others in the room. And I've been practicing about 21 years, and I said general outside counsel. I'm also kind of the technology person that helps write for the Contra Costa lawyer. Now, you probably saw my picture if you got the most recent Contra Costa lawyer. I looked a little bit better in this picture than I do now. And there's more copies on the way out.
Got more arms in that picture.
Yeah, I've got many more arms. Now I can work harder, unfortunately. So basically, we're going to talk about the different topics that we've got laid out on the overview that we handed out that should be in front of you. If you don't have a copy, you can let Lisa know. We'll get you a copy. And if you've got questions at any point, just raise your hand. This is kind of a group effort. We're kind of leading the discussion. You know, if there's something in particular you want to know and it fits into the topic, just let us know. We're happy to spend as much time on any particular topic as people want if there's something that has more interest to you than other topics. So, I mean, I'm definitely not an expert. Kirk is. I mean, he gets paid to do this stuff all the time. I get paid to be an attorney. I just play with technology.
Not the technology, but not the law. I try to avoid that. Defer to him.
So the first topic we've got is kind of location, location, location. And when you're talking about a virtual or a mobile law office, you know, this plays into how mobile and how virtual do you actually want to be. Myself, I started practice and I worked in a brick and mortar office at a law firm, and I was expected to show up every day and put in my billable hours. And when I got tired of that, I went out on my own. And since then, I've been on my own about 16 years, and I work out of my house. With my technology, I can work anywhere, as long as I can get Wi-Fi access, or if you want and you buy one of the cell products that you can get that will broadcast to your Wi-Fi, you can work from anywhere in the world nowadays. And that's kind of a double-edged sword, because you can doesn't mean you should. Your clients will assume that you can work anywhere and they can reach you at any time. That's kind of one of the downfalls of technology. But think about what your practice is. I mean, for my practice, I do general outside counsel, general counsel work. My clients, for the most part, don't visit me, so having a nice office for them to come see me in is kind of wasted overhead. My clients almost never come see me, so working out of my house fits in fine. But if I was doing criminal law or family law, I might not want my clients to know where I worked and where I lived. So having an outside office, even if you're working out of your home, is, you know, one of the things you need to consider based upon your practice. You know, I've listed here, you know, shared office, home office, Starbucks. I'm assuming most of you have been by a Starbucks or a Pete's, and half the time during the day it's people sitting there with their laptops working. You know, that is a reality nowadays. As an attorney, there's obviously some drawbacks to doing that, because if you're working at Starbucks and somebody's behind you looking over your shoulder reading what you're typing and you're sending something to a client, that's probably not the best idea because of client confidentiality. But it is a reality for some people now, especially coming out of law school. I know we're seeing more and more kids that aren't able to get jobs and they're hanging out their own shingle. I've talked to a couple who are living at home with their parents and kind of working wherever they can find a spot, sometimes at home, sometimes at a coffee shop. So it is a reality today, especially for some of the younger practitioners. And I think there's one in San Francisco people may have read about. I've seen it in the bar journals. I think it's a lady down in LA. She actually sets up once a week in a coffee shop, and she advertises herself as a coffee shop attorney. And she meets her clients at the coffee shop and gives out advice and does her work there. So it's a potential business model. It's not one I've seen in Contra Costa. I don't know. Have you seen that, Lisa?
Not yet.
Not yet. There's always hope for the future. So, For location, if you're, with technology now, location is not a barrier to how you practice. It's more of a consideration of what you practice and how much overhead you can afford. I don't like overhead. How about you? What do you see with your clients?
Well, we're seeing a mix. Obviously, office space is going to get more expensive. Over on the peninsula side, it's out of control. I mean, it's very expensive for office space. San Francisco is approaching almost 100% occupancy, so getting space is a challenge. So businesses are taking smaller footprints, allowing telecommuting, and these kinds of options. So it's going to become the way of the future for all companies, I think, unless they have to be collaborative.
I have a question in terms of like, I still think you could do that working inside the home and not have an office. But how does one, have you heard of the model of renting a conference room, for example?
Yeah, that's not uncommon.
And so, I mean, do you know in general, I mean, I just started researching this, but like, how much something like that would?
So like executive offices?
Yeah, there's executive offices that go everything from you just rent the conference space to you can actually rent an office and borrow the conference space and you use the office as needed. The bar actually will rent you their conference room. You can have meetings at the bar association. What do you charge, Lisa?
$100 a day or $10 an hour.
So you could meet your clients here at the bar offices starting next week when they move, $10 an hour, or there are various spaces. I think there's a big one in San Ramon that does hourly conference rentals. They'll even have a receptionist. They'll get your mail there. There's a package, so you kind of pick and choose what level of service you want from them. Yes.
I was going to suggest I use Regis.
Regis? Yeah.
I use Regis. I found it to be the best. So what it is that you can, so I started off with just using the mailing address for $79, and I just moved up to $199. You get 16 hours to meet clients. You get the mailing address, and they have a reception that picks up the phone and forwards it. The reason I like it, because I'm an immigration attorney, a lot of my clients, I meet them in San Francisco, I can meet them at the Regis there. So
it's transferable to any Regis office in the area?
Correct, yeah.
And you can choose,
Towers,
yeah, and they have a copy room, state-of-the-art copy room, and you can meet the clients. And for me, all my files, everything is at home. When I need to meet because most of my clients are detained, I meet them at detention.
That makes life easier.
What was the $80 fee you were saying? I mean, how does it break down?
So it's $80 if you want just the mailing address, which you can put on your business card.
Okay.
And then I just bumped it up like last month, I've been doing this for about a year and a half. And
Okay.
$200. You get the mailing address, you get 16 hours, which you break down either 2 8-hour days or 4 4-hour days.
Okay.
And then you get the reception that answers your call and she forwards it to you.
Yes.
I just consider all kinds of companies that are doing it right now, so
Yeah.
look around and find one that works for you. But there's all sorts of co-working situations too, where they also have private offices you can rent. So what I did is instead of Regis, I did Pacific Business Center because they were closer to me. $69 for the mailing address, and then you rent office space. They're part of the virtual cloud office organization. So
What is it called?
it's called Pacific Business Centers, or you can search for the cloud virtual office too. And they average between like $15 to $40 for private office space, depending on the location. But you can also just rent like a workstation or the ability to come and log onto their Wi-Fi and drink their coffee for the day if you want to just work outside of your house.
So $15 to $40 a month?
No. $15 to $40 an hour for private office space.
Oh,
And then
okay.
they've got packages with hours, and then there's all different sorts of things. Yeah, but look, because there's a lot of them now.
Yeah, they're all over the place.
Yeah.
So another option is law firm offices that have a conference room. There's a lot of people who are only too happy to use that space to rent out to other attorneys.
How do you find that?
Word of mouth, and I know what Deborah just said. I mean, I don't want to. I know an attorney who actually is using somebody else's conference room, and she also gets the mailing address, and she gets her name on the door of the firm, and she pays a monthly fee. I don't know what it is.
Okay.
So I can afterwards, if you want to talk to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's lots of options out there. Google is your friend in everything. You'd be surprised what you can find with Google searches.
It might be on Craigslist too. Who knows?
It's one of the biggest things you learn to do in law school is how to do research. Everyone should be familiar with how to do research through Google. And I mean, a lot of these questions, type in a search term and see what pops up. You'd be surprised how good you can find information on Google especially case law now. Google's starting to put everything into their own Google library for all the cases, so they're taking over everything. All right, so next, hello, is there anybody out there? So this is kind of how do you communicate with people? And this goes along with Office. Landlines are very 20th century. Most people still have landlines, although you're finding more and more people cut the landlines at home. I don't have a landline at my house. For our home use, myself, my wife, and my daughter all have cell phones, and we have plenty of minutes to spend. And for my office, I actually have a landline because the only way you can get your number in the yellow pages and in a business listing is to have an actual landline at this point. You still can't do it with a cell phone. So I have a landline, and it forwards to my cell phone. And about 3 years ago, I got tired of re-forwarding it every time I walked out of the office and unforwarding it when I was in the office. And I just left it forwarded. And so for the last 3 years, every time, all my ingoing and outgoing calls go right through my cell phone. I don't even bother with the landline other than as a means for people to be able to find me if they need to look me up online or in a actual phone directory if they call information. So operating with just a cell phone is a possibility, but I would still suggest that you at least have a landline purchase so that people can find you if they call information on the phone. If you don't have that, they aren't going to be able to find you.
Another advantage of having a landline is there are sometimes companies that sometimes you actually have to do a physical fax. So you go to your store, take your old fax machine, hook it up to your landline, and fax it because you can't do it through. They don't want a email, scanned email.
You can actually do fax online.
Yeah.
E-fax.
Yeah.
So you don't even need a physical fax anymore. You can actually PDF it to e-fax, and they will do a fax to the person on the other end.
The only reason I would say you would need a landline, I know, for immigration purposes, when you are doing conferences, appearances telephonically, they require a landline to call from.
Technically, so does court call, but I've never had an issue with my cell phone. And I know a lot of attorneys, you can tell sometimes the attorneys who are sitting in their cars, you can hear the wind whistling. But as long as you're in a quiet place, I've never had an issue using my cell phone for court call and court appearances. I do it all the time.
But for immigration purposes, they require you have a landline.
How do they check that you're calling from a landline and not a cell phone?
I don't know, I don't take the chance. The rule says you need a landline,
Yeah.
so I just make sure I have a landline. Yeah,
That's what court call tells you too, that court call says you must have a landline to call them. Half the attorneys I hear calling in, you can tell they're on a cell phone. So from that standpoint, I wouldn't worry about it as much. What do you think about what type of cell phone? I mean, do you have a preference for operating system, or is there much difference nowadays?
Well, I'm an iPhone fan, but the Android is definitely taking off. A lot of Android devices are popular. I think it's really personal preference. You're seeing a lot of the same apps being written across platforms because Android's getting a big share of the market. Windows is still going to be the smallest one. I think Windows Mobile is still not taking off that great, but as they integrate Windows 8 and the mobile and the tablet all in the same operating system, that'll be interesting to see. BlackBerry, if you've been following them in the news, you've probably got about 2 more years on your BlackBerry before that company goes bankrupt, if not sooner. So if you're a BlackBerry user, you should start looking at alternatives the next time you have a phone upgrade. I'm not sure how much longer that company will be in existence. And your 3 choices are primarily going to be Apple's iPhone, one of the various Android alternatives, or the new Windows phone. Have the new Windows phones started to come out yet with their new OS? With 8? I don't think so.
With 8? So shortly, probably within the next couple months, you'll start seeing the latest versions of the Windows phone that are to compete with Android and the iPhone. And initially, I would shy away a little bit from the Windows phone simply because it won't have the applications written for it yet that you might need as an attorney. But in the long run, Microsoft can buy share in the market, so you will likely see plenty of the applications starting to get ported over. I know at this point Microsoft is actually paying developers to write applications, so when their phones come out, they'll have at least a starting marketplace to be able to compete. And that's kind of the choice is what personally you want to use, and are the applications that you might want to use available for the phone other than just the stock applications that come with it. And as you can see, I'm an iPhone user too. These are ubiquitous everywhere.
just a better quality device, because Apple controls the device as well as the operating system. So you pay for that, and you pay for the lockdown and the control that they put in there, but it's just better quality. So it's really your preference.
Yes.
I just wanted to comment back on landlines that if you wanted to have a separate phone number, you didn't want a landline, and you wanted to save some money, Google Voice will give you a free number that can forward to your, and there's also companies I've found that will do answering services and forwarding to your voicemail for a very reasonable price, like $10 a month.
Yes, if you want, if you want somebody to answer your phone for you, then there's lots of receptionist services out there that are very inexpensive. You can have your line forward to them. They'll answer your phone and they will forward it over to you if you're available. I just have all my phone calls come directly to me. I have voicemail on there. If I'm not available, it goes to voicemail. Otherwise, I answer all my own calls. And I haven't had a problem with that. If I'm busy, I don't answer it. If I'm not busy, and I can, almost everybody's got caller ID. I know who's calling me. If I want to take their call, I can. If I don't, I just put it to voicemail.
That's why I can never reach you.
That's right. Kirk Harding? No, I don't think so.
Talking to me.
So what do you see for internet access out
So
there?
I'll go in fiber. I mean, right now, cable is obviously the best price for speed. Speed for price, it's cable over DSL, hands down. But as more fiber carriers start to get into your neighborhoods, AT&T Uverse and other competitors, fiber's gonna win because it has the greatest throughput. So in this building, for example, we have Astound, who services Walnut Creek and Concord. We get a 100 meg fiber connection to our office. Of course, we need that, and it's gonna be very expensive, but for home use, they have residential packages that are like, what, 20, 30 megabit, so it's pretty amazing what you can get these days for a very good price. And then when you're on the go, like Dave said, it's gonna be the hotspots, or it's gonna be the cell connections, the 4G type of connections with Verizon or AT&T.
Yeah, and I mean, there's still, in the US, there's still plenty of spots that have free Wi-Fi, although we're seeing some of the places are starting to lock down their Wi-Fi more and more as people have become security conscious. I know when I tried to fire up the Wi-Fi in this building, all the ones that were available were actually locked. A couple years ago, you'd have found at least one or two that were open. So people are becoming more security conscious, which is a good thing. And Starbucks offers free Wi-Fi, but I think it's AT&T, and you may have to, if you have AT&T, you automatically log in. If you don't, I don't know if you have to pay or not.
Yeah, there's a service that I found called, I think it was Boingo, I heard of that, where they have a hotspot finder on the app, and it'll tell you Starbucks, McDonald's, whatever it is in the area where you are, and you pay a fee per month and you have access to those hotspots.
And we're seeing more and more in airports, because I know I traveled a bunch earlier in the year and last year, and more airports are going towards a pay model, where you might get a half hour for free, and then you've got to put in your credit card and buy into the Wi-Fi. So some of the public spots are going away.
That's
Yes.
where you use the Boingo, and then you get access to all that.
Where does the cloud computing come into this?
We'll get to that a little bit later. That's a software-driven model. That's how you run your apps and where you save your data is the cloud.
But
So,
you can't connect there for things that you're talking about.
well, no, what we're talking about now is how you physically connect to the cloud. The cloud is basically the internet that's kind of all around you, and this is how do you connect to it. What phone are you going to use? Because you're going to be able to connect to the cloud through your phone. When you're in your office, are you going to use DSL? Are you going to use cable, fiber? Are you going to get the femtocell, which allows you to use a cell phone? It's a repeater that you can actually get for your home or your office, and some of the cell companies will offer that to you for free or at a low cost to keep you with them. I know AT&T has sent me flyers offering me one to keep me with them. So first is how do you actually get to the cloud, and what are you using to get to that cloud? And then we'll get to what you do with it later. Yes?
Well, I have a concern using the public Wi-Fi in terms of security. And so I'm wondering if you have any recommendations for like an app that would, provide more security when I'm like at Starbucks or something using their Wi-Fi, using a public.
What are you connecting to from there?
Oh, like clients or.
Well, you're talking just emailing them?
Or yeah, emailing them or just going on the internet, and I'm just not wanting people to hack into my. I mean, there's been so many in the last month. LinkedIn, Yahoo, eHarmony. It's like every day I'm getting these announcements about, people being all these different sites being hacked into.
Well, that's,
And, but that's sort of, but just in terms of, so security, I think when you're on, a public Wi-Fi is an issue, I think. I mean, it should be for attorneys, I would think.
well, they're not gonna hack into your computer. I mean, there are some people out there who can drive by and intercept the communications and decrypt them, but that is very rare, and your chances of that happening are pretty slim unless someone is targeting you. And again, that's gonna be pretty darn rare. There's been instances in California where law firms have been suing Chinese companies, and they have been actively attacked by hackers from China to try and breach firewalls to steal their files for litigation. Otherwise, that's sitting at Starbucks is not going to get you hacked. Sitting at Starbucks surfing the web may cause you to download a virus that allows them to enter your
Okay,
computer.
well, that's another, well,
But that's
Yeah,
a separate
so-
issue. That's not
so-
going to be you getting hacked directly. That's you causing and allowing the hack.
yeah, and so then if you have just general spyware and malware
So
protection.
you'll have your
yeah.
Windows, if it's a Windows operation, you'll have your Windows firewall left turned on, protecting any inbound traffic that's been solicited. And then definitely using a good malware and antivirus application and then keeping it updated
Okay,
on your
thank
computer.
you.
Like Kaspersky, or what do you recommend?
We use Sophos. Kaspersky can be pretty good too, so that'd probably be our second choice.
Aren't most of those problems though, because people transmit personal information using websites that don't use secure socket layers? So if you're sending personal information, like Facebook, you send information, they don't use security, and so information you put through Facebook can be observed by anybody that's on the Wi-Fi connection around you with just a general app. So that's the bottom line, is if it's not an HTTPS website, then don't put any personal information in it. You assume that people can see it, right?
That's right. And if you need secure email, you can sign up for services that have email encryption. So when you're sending the email, it's sending it encrypted. It's going to add some additional layers that make it a little more cumbersome, because the receiving party needs the decrypting key to open your email. So you deal with hassle versus security, right?
You
How
have
many
to
locks
have-
you want on your door.
You have to have
Get
somewhat
else.
sophisticated clients if you're going to go to encrypted email, because you have to be able to walk your clients through how to install the encryption on their computer and how to have the encryption key, and then to be able to encrypt and decrypt in both directions.
And the other option is to post the secure content to a vault, like an online vault that's secure, and then have the client then go get it. So that way you're not having to send it and deal with encryption keys, you're just parking it up there, and then they can go grab it securely.
And we'll get to that a little bit later when we get to the cloud, because that's talking about, how are you going to get information back and forth. So next is, what type of computer are you going to use? In the past, pretty much everybody had a desktop, and if you went on the road, you took your big laptop with you that might weigh 20 pounds and gave you a good workout. Now, there's a whole lot of options that are available, and more attorneys are going to just a laptop. You walk into their office, and that is their primary computer, is a laptop. So you've got a lot more options. When I go on the road, a lot of times I just take my iPad. That's all I need, but it'll depend on what you're doing. This is not a good option if you need to create documents, or if you need to do heavy editing. Taking a tablet with you is probably not a good idea. If you just need to surf the web, send email, read documents coming in, maybe do some very minor editing, not a problem with an iPad or any of the other tablets. But for creation, it's a pain in the butt. I would definitely not recommend it.
And tablets are output devices. They're great for getting information out. They're terrible for putting it in. I mean, the keyboard helps, but it's still not going to compare to without a mouse, without, a tiny screen, but it's great for getting information. There you go.
Yeah, if you're trying to edit a document and get the cursor to the exact spot using your finger, if you've ever tried that before, yeah, it can be real painful to try and get that perfect spot where you can edit the word. It is difficult. Laptops have gotten increasingly small. Apple started it with the MacBook Air, and I think most of the PC vendors have a competing model now that are similar with no CD drive, just a very minimalist laptop, as small as possible, 10 pounds or less, 5 pounds.
For a laptop?
For the MacBook Airs and like the Dells.
Yeah, like
competitors.
3 pounds and under. Yeah, very thin, very light.
Yes.
Well, don't you need a wireless printer to be able to print what you did on your tablet?
For the tablet,
Like the iPad?
For an iPad, well, there's a couple options. You can email it. I mean, if I create something, I can email it to myself in my office, to my desktop or laptop, and print off of my connection. There are some printers.
If you're away from home.
If you're away from home,
Page
your best option is to find what used to be called Kinko's, now is a FedEx office. You can email a document to them, they can print it. Otherwise, there are a few wireless printers that are coming out, but I don't think most of them you want to travel with. They're fairly large. I don't think I've ever seen yet one of the small compact printers that's wireless. So your printing options would be fairly limited, which again is why this is mostly an email machine, not creating a document, printing it to a printer, and giving it out to people.
That's where your business centers come in too. If you're affiliated with one of these Pacific Coast, Regis and whatnot, you can stop in and handle those needs on the fly wherever you may be. That's an option.
I mean, one of the things in looking at, I have a desktop in my office. I like having a fixed machine, and I spend most of my time in the office with a very large monitor. I've got the iPad, I've got a laptop, but I find myself almost never using the laptop. If I'm in the office, I've got the desktop, and when I'm on the road, I just take this with me. I load it with whatever I need, and off I go, because I know I'm usually not going to be creating a long document. So, I still like desktops for the office. I don't know, what are you seeing in your clients?
Yeah, so I mean, people ask me, what do I use, a desktop, a laptop, or a tablet? And I say yes, because it's all of them. So at home, I have a desktop with a 30-inch monitor. Here in the office, I have a desktop with 3 monitors, because I multitask in the office. Then I have an ultra-portable laptop, a Mac Air. I have the tablet, and of course I have my iPhone. So I have 5 devices for one person. And they're cost effective. I mean, a computer's under $1,000, a laptop's maybe $1,000, $1,500. I mean, for as much as we use technology, a computer used to be $5,000, and now you're getting 5 devices for the price of one. So we're seeing a lot of people have multiple devices. We've got people with 3 or 4 phones. I don't know what they need that for. 3 tablets. It's like, what do you need? What is that all about? So we see the full gamut with our user community. It's pretty wild, but lots of devices.
I mean, my thoughts, depending upon what your budget is, if you had to choose one of the 3, I would go with the laptop to start. I mean, that's your most versatile. You can use it anywhere, and that's going to be your best bet on a limited budget. If you have to spend money on the computer, the best investment is the maximum amount of RAM you can afford or shove into it and the largest hard drive space. I mean, that's where I would spend my money on any computer, is to max those out. That'll make a big difference in speed and longevity of the machine. Apples tend to have a longer life. Apple's OS updates tend to run longer on their older machines, although we're seeing more recently where they're actually end-of-lifing their machines a little quicker, like on the PC side, to force an upgrade cycle. The PCs, I think we see a shorter life cycle with their, with newer software and operating system upgrades. They get obsolete a little bit quicker than what you've seen.
Yeah, it just depends. I mean, it depends on what your needs are. I mean, Windows XP had a very long run. Windows 7, that's about 4 or 5 years, and now we're starting to get into Windows 8. So if you time your purchase with a major release of an operating system, then you can have a pretty good long run in that machine. You'll probably stay with the operating system, because upgrading that may incur driver limitations in terms of compatibility, the hassle factor. So generally, the best time to do a refresh is shortly after an operating system comes out. It's been proven.
Yes?
Is there an issue in terms of interfacing, excuse me, applications from, say, an Apple iPhone to a PC laptop?
It depends on the application. I mean, when you go to the Apple store to look at the application you're downloading, you're going to want to read through it and see, what the use of the application is and whether, it's a cross-platform application. Like, I've got my calendaring software and my billing software that runs on my iPhone, my iPad, and my Mac, but it's Mac only. So if you were to buy that, you'd use it on your phone, your iPad, but you wouldn't be able to use it on your computer at home if it's Windows.
So your laptop is a Mac?
I'm all Mac. I've always been all Mac.
Okay.
I've had an Apple computer for 30 years. So longer than some people in this room may have been alive. But you have to look at the specific application. Some of them, for the most part, they're general applications. If it's going to be stuff that's going to access your Word documents and Excel files, that'll work on any platform. you'll be able to exchange files back and forth. The main limitation is that most of those programs can't hold the full document. So if you've done a lot of edits on a Word doc, for instance, and you show all the codes, where everybody has done edits to it, when you import that into most of the applications on the iPhone, it's not going to be able to see all those changes. So there are limitations on the software on the phone that you don't have on your desktop computer. But supposedly by the end of this year, Microsoft will be releasing the full Office suite for the iPhone and the iPad. So we'll see if that happens. If that does, then you may pretty much have seamless transportability between all of the Microsoft Office documents. Yes?
What do you do for court forms on the iMac?
On the Mac?
Yeah.
Right now, you're kind of out of luck because the one gentleman who was doing court forms retired a year and a half, 2 years ago, Mac Forms, Roger Williams. So what I'm having to do is download PDF documents, which is not very, very handy because you've got to redo them every single time. Really, the only option is to put a Windows partition on your Mac and get one of the Windows verticals, or I think there are some companies that are starting to offer the ability to do it on the web now, but I haven't really seen those. They're mostly still desktop based.
The other option is to have a PC and
Well, no.
dedicate it to the forms.
No, but you can have
Yeah.
the Mac will actually run Windows as well, if not better than most Windows machines. You can install any version of Windows on a partition and run it concurrently through Parallels or dry boot it into Windows, and actually it'll be a dedicated Windows machine on your Mac and run any software that a PC will run.
Right, and I was reluctant to do that because I thought that, the reason I went to the Mac was to avoid all the invasion of malware. And then I thought if you split your computer down the middle with, the PC capability, it might invite malware for at least that side of it. So that hasn't been your experience.
No, because you're not going to be surfing the web on the PC side. You'll surf it on the Mac side. The only thing you're going to use the PC side of your Mac for is the programs you can't get on the Mac, which at this point is only forms generation software. So you'll launch it, you'll do your form, and that's the only thing you're ever going to use Windows for.
You'll still want the anti-malware antivirus software on that Windows operating system though.
Okay. So monitors. You said you have a 30-inch monitor at home and 3 at work. What size
That's right.
do you use at work?
I like the 4:3 aspect ratio because otherwise you're getting these wide monitors and you're going to have them like this. So when I do multi-monitor, I like the 4:3, so a nice 19 or 20 inches is sufficient when you're going to have that many of them. And I like an odd number, so you have the one in the middle, 2 to the side, or 5, or whatever you want to do.
He's going to do a full cockpit so you can
You can do 6, you can do 3 up top, so yeah, if you're doing that. But our guys upstairs, they have 4. They like to have 4 per desk.
And I use
Lots of multitasking.
I use 2. My main is a 27-inch, and then I have a 21-inch set next to it. And so I can have up to 4 pages. I've done 4 side-by-side pages with the 2 monitors. Generally what I do is I leave my email program open on one monitor, and then my working monitor is the documents I'm working on. And at any time, I usually have 5 or 6 programs going. My email, my internet connection for browsing, Word, sometimes Excel, Acrobat's always open, my billing program's open, my calendaring program's always open. So having the multiple monitors can really help. I think it makes you a little bit more efficient. It lets you have all the things open, you can see them and what's going on. And having the ability to put multiple pages side by side can really be a big assistance, especially if you're trying to compare documents or you're working off of a form. Cutting and pasting back and forth can be pretty handy. Yes?
So, sir, I just became a Mac user about 2 months ago. What were you saying that you can't do on Mac, that you have to go to PC window?
Forms generation, that's it.
Meaning like
Judicial council forms.
Oh, but if
You
you
can
have Adobe Acrobat, right?
You can do it with Acrobat, but if you want to have a program where you enter the client's information and it fills the form for you, and then you just fill the particular form, so you don't have to recaption every single time with every form you use in the case, because most people, if you're a litigator, you're going to have multiple judicial council forms you're using throughout the life of the case. And if you've got a forms program like what is the gentleman out of San Francisco, Lisa, we've had speak?
Essential forms.
Yeah, Martin Dean, Essential Forms. He has, basically a database. You fill in your client information, your case information, and it populates the form, and then you go and do the specific form itself. So you don't have to retype the caption each time in your name and your office and all of that.
So is that only for judicial forms, or can you do that? So is it a forms program that you buy,
It's a forms program you buy for judicial council forms.
just for judicial?
Correct. So what have other people seen for monitors? Are most of you using just one monitor, or most of you using multiple monitors?
Three.
Three?
Three 22-inch, I think they're 22-inch, and you're right, I did it about 2 years ago, and it's, you know, as far as the expense, it's negligible because of the efficiency, and it makes it easier because, like you said, you could have all of these programs up there. It's great.
And monitors are cheap. You can go get a 25-inch monitor for a couple $100, and they're pretty good quality.
You can put one big one in the middle and two to the side, yeah.
It would also make pixelation also makes a difference, because I got a 25 and a half, it's 1900 by 1200. I actually have 3 documents on one screen, and it's clearer than it's printed.
Yeah. Yeah, and plus, if you get a document, you have a larger screen, in Word, you can drag the little button at the bottom to make the form, make the page bigger, so you can look at it 150% rather than, 100%. So if you need to see something like reading footnotes or reading people's comments, if you're at 100% view, sometimes it's hard to read the footnotes and people's comments, but if you blow it up to 150%, it's not a problem. Yes?
Okay, so you've got all these monitors, client comes in, what do? Look over the monitor? I mean, you don't have so much space on your desk. What do? Have 3, 4 desks that you jump around from? What's the practical
Well, I don't
aspect of that?
I don't meet my clients in my office. I mean, I work out of my house, so I have them in the dining room. Most attorneys that I've seen that have a multiple monitor setup like that have almost a credenza where, the main monitor's kind of to a corner, one on each side, then you face the client that way, so it's kind of to your side, and you just swivel your chair over to work on the computer.
Yeah, L-shaped desk kind of thing where your monitors all line up here, but you're facing this way. So you just turn.
So it's going to depend on how your office is set up and, what kind of space you have, obviously. You may be limited to only 2 monitors if you only have a limited amount of space. But having, at least 1 extra monitor in addition to your main monitor can actually make your life a lot easier. I think,
Even if it's a smaller one?
sure. Any extra real estate that you can get, is good, because it lets you see multiple things going on at once. So, it just gives you that extra option of having another program open that you can see what's going on. So, you might have your billing program on one side, so you remember, I just took a phone call, there's my billing program, I know I got to put my time in, rather than having it hidden on your desktop, you might forget to code that time. You do that enough times, you've just paid for that extra monitor probably within a day. Yes?
I haven't gotten a pad yet, but I'm just wondering, do they connect at all, like in the Windows, in the Mac world, so that the iPad could be that other monitor? Or is this purely for connection to the internet and no connection to your?
There are some applications for the Mac that will let you extend your monitor to an iPad. I haven't used any of them. They're available. I mean, the screen, you are going to get some extra real estate, but not a whole lot on it. It's cheaper just to go out and get another monitor. I mean, it's half the price of the iPad to add a 21, 22-inch monitor to your setup.
It's good for portability though.
Yeah.
So if you're on the go, you can use that as a second monitor for those scenarios.
And you can also use this, leave it on and plugged in on the side and just have your email program up on this and use it as a monitor, use it as a second computer. So this becomes your emailing machine, whereas your main computer is used for other stuff.
That's a lot simpler.
Yeah, that would be the simpler way to use the iPad if you were going to go that way. All right, so operating systems.
Windows, right?
Mac. Linux, come on,
I'm a
who's
PC.
using Linux in the office?
I'm a PC. Yeah, Linux.
It comes down to personal preference. Most of you, I'd be willing to bet most of you are probably PC users. And the vast majority of the software is still available on the PC. As I said, there's nothing you can't do on the Mac that isn't Mac-specific software other than forms generation, because the guy doing it retired. And that obstacle can be overcome. But most software, in the law office is still kind of PC-centric. Most of your billing programs that you find are PC-centric. But most of the general programs, Microsoft Office, most of those applications were actually written for the Mac and ported back to Windows when Bill Gates first wrote them. All those are available. Acrobat's cross-platform. Most major business applications are cross-platform, so there's really no limitation. You're seeing more and more people, even if they have a PC, a lot of them are getting a Mac portable to take with them because they like the stability and they like the fact that there are many fewer viruses. So if you're on the road, you have to surf the web. You don't have the risk as much as you do necessarily with a PC. I mean, you've got a Mac Air for portability and put a Dell desktop.
Sure. So, I mean, I'm comfortable switching back and forth, and not everybody is going to be as comfortable.
He goes
with that.
both ways.
So, yeah, I can do both sides of the equation. I've opened up my horizons to the Mac. But so you mentioned earlier you were worried about security and transmitting information, right? Well, there's a third option, and that's to have a device that essentially is just like the old dumb terminal, where it's nothing more than the input. It's the keyboard, the mouse, or the interface, but the actual operating system lives up in the cloud as a hosted desktop. So now you're running your Windows desktop, for example, at a hosted cloud provider. You're not even running it on the local machine. So now you're not transmitting anything more than mouse clicks and keyboard clicks and receiving back a screen. And then your desktop is available from any device, anywhere that you're connected to.
What program is that? I mean, what is
For
that?
example, like Citrix does it with their Zen desktop, VMware View. They're basically hosted desktops. So you would need a hosted desktop provider. They would have that operating system running in their hardware, and then you would just receive back the screen and be sending input to it.
And you can, to an extent, do that yourself. With laptops and with the iPad, you can actually dial into your home computer and bring the screen up. I can run a Mac or a PC that's got the proper software from my iPad. It'll bring the screen up on my iPad and I can operate it remotely.
Correct. So you're doing a remote desktop protocol RDP session or something like that to another device and remotely controlling essentially in a session. So same concept.
And if you hear an acronym that you don't understand, feel free to raise your hand. I mean, when you're talking about technology, it's a lot of acronyms that most non-techies don't know what it means.
You mean VDI and RDP?
There you go. So don't be shy about admitting you don't know what the hell we're talking about or Kirk's talking about.
Do you have suggestions for any particular hosting? I mean, I was looking into SpiderOak, like cloud
Can you
server.
repeat the question because I can't?
Oh, my question was, do you have any suggestions for, because of the encryption that's required for attorneys, do you have any recommendations for any cloud servers? One of the ones that I found the most secure was SpiderOak.
And what were they advertising that they do?
There's a website called Lawyerist Lab, and they've been talking about it on technology for attorneys. It's called Lawyerist Lab, and the one that they recommended was SpiderOak versus some of the other ones that they were talking about. SpiderOak has the most encryption where they're a third-party host, but they don't have access to the data that you put in the cloud server. So I was looking into it because I was talking to a computer technologist, a techie person, to come over to the home office, and he said you need a backup as a hard drive so you can access it quickly, but then you should also have it as a backup in the cloud server so that if, God forbid, your house burned down and you lost the computer.
So for backup purposes.
Cloud serving services.
Yeah, I mean, we'll move on now to talk about applications and cloud computing since they kind of go hand in hand nowadays. And everybody, most attorneys use Word. WordPerfect used to be the standard a long, long time ago, and that company's kind of died off, and the application's still there, but I haven't seen very many people using it. So most offices are going to have Word with your Mac or PC. Same with Acrobat. Everybody's going to have an accounting package. QuickBooks is pretty popular, at least for solos and small firms, relatively easy to use. There are starting to be more and more online accounting packages that you can use up in the cloud, per se on the internet, where you're renting the software rather than you owning it. And the same goes for, billing, email. There's tons of clients out there. Microsoft Outlook is probably the most common that people are going to be using on the PC. On the Mac, there's Outlooks, Apple's Mail. There's all, Mozilla has an email client. Web browsing and virus protection is probably the most important thing on the PC side. And you had mentioned what, Sophos?
Sophos.
And that's what you guys recommend?
That's what we use with all of our clients. We have, 1,500 installs. Sophos.
And the most important thing with that is to keep your virus software updated. Most of them come with a maintenance plan, so you want to keep those.
It's an annual renewal. It's Sophos is the company that we've been using. It's a SOPHOS. They're Vancouver based.
So why is it that you recommend that as opposed to something else?
We've just met the company. We've been up there and really like the product. I think they update a lot faster. They'll update multiple times throughout the day. It's a 24/7 follow the sun operation. They have overseas offices, so they're looking at viruses that come in real time in their labs and producing defenses against that and releasing much faster than other providers. So it was just a much more powerful platform. And for us as a hosting company, we have a central distribution server where we can deploy the software and then their clients will receive their settings through us. So we manage the networks for all of our clients. So this allows us centralized control over the antivirus across all these different environments.
And having that annual subscription is what's critical. If you walk out and you buy software, they email it to you, download it, and that's great, but it's only going to be good for 15 minutes after you install it. If you don't have the maintenance updates that you renew every year so that you're getting those 24/7 updates or however often your software will update, within a few days you're outdated and the virus writers have bypassed your software because it's a constant battle between the people writing the viruses and the people writing the antivirus software as to who's going to win. It's kind of an arms race, and so far I think America's winning, at least with Iran and importing viruses into their nuclear machines. Yes?
I'm just curious what people use for data management.
For what type of data?
Client base, managed database,
So client
check
contact
conflicts.
management?
I mean, I've used Outlook, but I know a lot of people, I thought about Abacus, but every time I almost buy it, they change the program. I thought, this is not a good program for me.
And you're PC-based?
Yes, I am.
Okay. What are other people using for their client contact management and conflict checking?
And to just put all your clients in there and know.
I have a Mac. I use Daylight, so it's a Mac-only program. It works on the phones, the iPad, and the Mac.
What is it?
I don't
Daylight.
have anything yet, really, because I'm just starting my own practice, but I've been looking at 3 or 4 different options that are all online, and there's been a discussion on Lawyerist about them, and some of them, like My Cases is one of them, and I forget what the other ones are called, but some of them have client portals so that your client can go and look at, bills in real time and stuff, and upload documents and such. So I don't know, nobody's used any of those yet?
There's also include billing and
It
accounting
includes
stuff.
billing, I don't know how much accounting, and I was looking for something with an accounting option too, so I don't know how much it does that. But billing, yes, and timekeeping.
I'll go on my old man curmudgeonly rant about some of the online software. In the late 90s, when we had the first internet bubble that occurred, there were a lot of companies that were offering, at that point it wasn't called cloud computing, but in effect cloud computing, and almost all of them went bankrupt. And all the data that was stored on them was taken by the bankruptcy courts, and those servers were sold. And a lot of people found out that it actually wasn't encrypted, and people had, they bought the servers and they had access to whatever data was on there. Most people didn't care about it, but it was out there. And I think there's a risk going forward. There's a lot of internet startups out there that are writing lots of cool software. As an attorney, I would be hesitant to use a company that was just starting out, because if they fail, you got to recreate the wheel. You've now got to go to another company, enter all your data in again. If you don't have a backup of the data in some kind of like a CSV file, some type of a database backup file on your own hard drive at your house or office, you're going to rekey everything, and you've got to do it out of memory if one of those internet companies runs out of venture funding and goes under. I mean, that's, and one of the things that didn't get attached here, but I've got a citation to one of the out-of-state citations, and we're going to email this out later. It's a state bar opinion, professional responsibility on virtual law practice and your ethical obligations. And so it's something you need to think about when you're looking at the various online services. And, I'd rather have the control over it. I don't use any of the services where I'm renting their application. I'll back up my data online as long as it's encrypted, but I won't use, Microsoft. You can rent Office, you can go to Google Docs and use Google Docs online. I like to have it on my desktop. I mean, the reason for the PC revolution was people wanted the control over their own computers. They didn't like the client-server model, where you had a dumb terminal. Somebody's laughing, he's old enough to remember it.
Hey, the way we're going, it seems like we're going, more autonomous, and then the cloud is going back to the dumb terminal. Pretty soon we're going to go back to
The
That's
pendulum.
not exactly what most of these are, though. Most of them back up to your computer as well, and there's always, redundancies going on so that if the cloud is lost, you have a backup on your computer. I don't know about these programs in particular that I was talking about, but they were created specifically for lawyers.
Well, that's what you need to, they had those in the 90s. That's what you need to check on. If you're going to use any of the web services online, there's a lot of them coming out. I've looked at them, and, there's some really good applications out there. You can do a lot of billing online. You can do your contact management and a lot of other applications for law offices online. But you need to make sure, how secure is your data, and if that company goes out of business, is there a copy on your desktop that some application like Microsoft Excel can read so that you can get to your data and then re-export it to another company if you've got to move your data over?
About 6 months ago, it could have been a little longer, Law Technology News had an article on cloud computing and some of the different options for attorneys, including a system that LexisNexis has put up recently that they really like. So if you go on Law Technology News and just search their archive for cloud computing, you'll probably find the article, and it can give you a breakdown of sort of what the most sophisticated best programs are. And it's multidimensional, from billing to document creation to data management, all in one. Someone like LexisNexis, they're going to be around, and even if they shut down that particular program, they're probably not going to do what you said, which is just dump the servers, because it's all legal in nature.
But, the pendulum is going back to the point where we are going back to just having a dumb terminal in your home or office, and all the software will be on the internet. You'll rent your software. So you'll pay Microsoft $10 a month, and you'll have access to the Microsoft Office suite. And you'll pay somebody else for your contact management and accounting, and that type of a model is what is coming.
Wall Street likes reoccurring revenue.
What's
They don't want to
what's
see a
all
big
this
purchase and
new
forget it.
then?
Well, it's not exactly like it was that before exactly, though, because they would update it every 3 years, and you'd have to pay for the update and everything else, and sometimes you'd have to pay for a brand new license if it was a major update. So we've been doing that all along. It's just, are you going to pay monthly and get regular updates, or are you going to pay a big chunk and then have to pay for another update a couple years down the line?
Right.
I don't know.
They want consistent revenue streams.
Yes. And what are you seeing with clients? Are you seeing more rental model? Or
We're seeing a lot of interest in people that don't want to maintain servers. So the bigger companies that have enough capacity, enough employees that they have a server infrastructure for central data management, they don't want to have that infrastructure, that capital investment, a server room, and so forth. So they're saying, we want to move that. And so a company like ours hosts that for them, either their devices or ours, and then they do an arrangement like that where they expense it versus a capital purchase. So it is becoming popular. But there's still always the client that wants control, like David's saying, I want my box of my data in my possession versus out there, and I might lose access to it. And if you're talking about proprietary database type formats, even if you can get the data, you're not going to be able to do anything with it because it's in a table structure that's unique to the application. And getting it into something else is going to be a large undertaking.
And I don't do any of the electronic discovery like some of the bigger firms do in bigger cases, but that's an issue. In e-discovery, that's a huge issue. Is if you send a subpoena out, how do you actually access the data? Can you get it in a readable form? The U.S. government has data going back 20, 30 years on tapes They can't access the data anymore. The machines physically don't exist to read the data. So, that's one of the things, that's why, you've seen like Acrobat. 10 years ago when Acrobat first came out, there were probably 20 competitors that did kind of the same thing. And they got winnowed down, and Acrobat has become the standard. And so all of the data that's out there, and Acrobat, Adobe's been pushed to make Acrobat more open so that the data that underlies it can be read in the future should Adobe go under, so that, Library of Congress can access that data. And you're seeing more formats like that. So when you look for the online providers, make sure that there is a common data format underlying it, that you can read the data and move it to another program. Because 5 years from now, you may not be happy with the direction that that software has taken. You might want to go with a different portal or a different piece of software, and can you get your data and how easy is it to move over? So you got to kind of plan for the future. Even if you're buying the stuff on your desktop, can those documents exist? Because one of the critical things for an attorney, your brief bank over time. I mean, I've got every document I've ever created for 20 plus years as an attorney and some of my law school stuff. I can do a search on my hard drive and pull up documents from 10 years ago that I can modify. That's actually worth something to you, saving your time and effort when you have to redraft a motion. It's like, oh, I know I did that motion at some point in my career, and all that's available to me. So you want to make sure that that's the same with your billing and your contact management software. How often are you asked to go retrieve old stuff? I know that's been an issue for you sometimes.
Nobody deletes, so you don't have to worry about it. They keep everything.
But going back and finding it for them.
They'll lose what they created yesterday, so I'll find it. Would you name it? I have no idea. Okay. That's a place to start.
Yes.
Do you sync up the document changes that you make on both your laptop and your PC?
I do. I mean, everything.
How do you do that?
I use a cloud service.
You use it.
That'll go back and forth between the two.
What do you use for that?
I use SugarSync and I encrypt it. There's others that are encryptable. What you want to look at is at times that they don't decide to send your email, and all your data out to the world as a whole. Send it to WikiLeaks and there's your entire case file. You're laughing. That happened to UCSF. A few years ago, they were sending medical documents out for transcription. You may have read about it. And one of their transcriptionists, I think she was in India, decided she wasn't being paid enough. And she threatened to reveal all of the medical transcripts that she was working on the internet if UCSF or whoever the chain was that was paying her and providing her the documents didn't pay her more. So, that is a reality out there for companies that are outsourcing stuff, is how secure is your data. And will an employee,
Did you get a raise?
I don't remember what happened. I remember it was a huge issue in the San Francisco Chronicle a few years ago, and it revealed that UCSF didn't even know that their documents that were going to this American company were being outsourced to India. They had no idea it was going outside the U.S. and where those documents were going. So, that's an issue. Yes?
We back up on a server, but we also back up on Mozy Pro. Is that encrypted?
Don't know. You'd have to look at their terms of service and look. You can encrypt it yourself. You can encrypt it from the hard drive to them. So you'd have to look at what they use. Some of the services do, some don't. I think Dropbox does not. You can encrypt it and put it in your Dropbox, but if you upload it to Dropbox, it's not encrypted. So you have to look at whether your service, some of the services will tell you up front that they offer you a key and you're the only one with that key. So it's encrypted from your hard drive to their server and they have no access to your encryption key. So even if they go out of business or an employee goes off the rails and takes your data, it's encrypted and they would have to go, run a high-level server to try and decrypt it. And ultimately, nothing is safe on the internet. I mean, someone out there's got a big enough computer that they can break the encryption, but is it worth it? And do you care if...
Do you recommend you don't do that?
Don't do...
have backups?
Oh, no, I would recommend you definitely have backups. I don't have any problem with that. I just want you to make sure it's safe. I mean, ultimately, if the NSA wants your data, they're going to decrypt it, but the average hacker is not going to be able to decrypt it if you have a long enough encryption key.
Yeah, use a 256-bit encryption would be fine. And then anything in transit or in storage is encrypted.
Yes.
Do you need virus protection on an iPhone, or does it already come with it?
There is no phone virus protection software that I know of at this point. Apple controls their store. There have been some malware programs that have made it on. Recently they took one down that was a kind of a Trojan that could steal data, but Apple controls it at their end. On the Android, it's an open marketplace, and you have no idea what you're downloading or where it's coming from because Google does not control their apps. So anybody could write an app that does anything to your phone, and Google doesn't care. So I don't know, have you played with Google phones at all? And the
No,
Android
but
system?
there was an exploit even on the iPhone a few years back where you got, I think it was a text message or something that had some strange characters in it that actually did infect
Yeah.
the phone. So
I mean, you're going to
can
see
happen.
it more and more. There are a few applications that have made it into the Apple Store that are designed to try and steal data, and usually within a day or two, somebody will find it, report it to Apple, and Apple pulls it from their store. It's much more common on the Android phone because it's an open application, an open marketplace that nobody controls. So if you're going to buy software for, or download software for the Android phone, I would be very careful as to where you get it from. I know Google has their own marketplace that you can buy and download from, and they control the apps that are in that. But for Android, you can go anywhere and get apps. iPhone, unless you jailbreak it, you can't.
And keep the latest version on your iPhone, because I think a lot of that is the security that Apple is then integrating into the new
Yeah.
iOS, right?
Well, it quits working, just so that you know. If you don't upgrade it when it prompts you to do it for a while, it will stop working unless you upgrade it. I know the hard way. Because it hasn't been convenient, you know, upgrading it.
Another one of those.
And it stops working. I mean, every time you turn around, upgrade this, upgrade that, spend my whole life upgrading.
It's true.
Time to practice law.
Well, with more and more people using phone, the smartphones, that's the next target for hackers. It's, they're going to do everything they can to figure out how to get your data off of your phone that they can use. That's just the way it is.
Easiest way is to take it.
Yeah, it is.
Seriously.
Well, human engineering is the #1 method of hacking, and that is to go make a friend of somebody in the company, and, oh, I'm just your computer guy, I need your password, and I'll remotely log in and I'll fix your problems. Oh, okay, no problem. Or the janitor comes in and the people have their stickies on their computer with their password. Oh, look, there's the password. Now I got the password.
Yeah.
That's human engineering. That's the easiest way to break into your computer. Yes?
So I'm wondering if you're using any of the credit card apps.
I am not. I know the Contra Costa DAs in the police department love the Square Reader. If your credit card is stolen and the criminals are using the Square Reader, they love that application because the Square Reader, if you've seen, it's the little attachment for your phone. They can slide the credit card through it. Square software does a GPS tag of where the phone is with the Square Reader when they run it through. So recently I know the Contra Costa DA's office caught a gentleman sitting in his basement running multiple credit cards. They sent a subpoena to Square. Square sent them all the GPS. It all showed the guy's basement, in his house. They were able to bust him pretty easily. So the police like it because it's easy to track where it's being used from and who's actually charging it. I haven't used it, but I know it's becoming more and more prevalent. It's pretty easy to use. I don't accept credit cards, but if you do accept them and you need a swiper, you can look at the costs of them versus Costco versus all the other companies, but Square seems to be a pretty good deal. Yes?
Square is the most financially feasible. I looked at a whole bunch of them. I use Square all the time. They charge 2.75% if you swipe it, and then 3.75% if you key it in. I did Chase and some of the other banks. They'll tell you 1.99% or something, but then it depends on which credit card you're using, and they'll charge you more. So financially, it's feasible.
The only issue with some of the credit cards is, you want to look at the state bar ethics opinions about, where the money goes into, and if there's charges deducted out of it, it can't come out of your trust account. And some of the credit card companies, like American Express, I know if the customer challenges the bill, American Express just grabs the money back. They don't even listen. They don't wait to hear from you as the vendor. They'll just take the money back and then wait to hear from you after they've taken it out of your account, which could throw your trust account into a negative balance. So, you've got to, I would look at some of the ethics opinions and do some Googling on attorneys using credit cards to see, pluses and minuses. A lot of firms do it. It is doable, so don't be scared of it, but yes. We got one up front here.
I've been using Dropbox
Yes.
to back up. I hope it's okay. And I remember researching all this. I just found on my iPhone again. It has SSL, secure sockets layer.
For the in transit.
Correct. That's from you to them. That means it's encrypted between your computer and their computer, but the document itself is not encrypted on their computer necessarily.
So what is it? And then they have AES 256.
Okay, so they do have encryption.
Okay.
So you're using the AES encryption, so that'd be fine.
So I researched, I read all that. It all
Yes.
sounded,
So you just want to make
much
sure
about this,
that,
but-
that it's encrypted on their servers. And some of the services offer varying levels of encryption where what you want optimally is for you to have the only key. So they will give you an encryption key that comes with the software on your desktop or your phone. And that key is the only one that can access the data, so that it's encrypted from start to finish. And if somebody in their business, if an employee decides they want to, type in and see if you're representing O.J. Simpson, they have no way of getting to your data. And you hear that from the IRS. Somebody's looked up Barack Obama's taxes or Mitt's taxes or whatever.
Well, with Dropbox, it sounds like I'm okay with it.
I think so. Yeah, you're using the AES encryption, so you're fine.
Okay.
Yeah,
I mean,
so
the only issue is some employee at Dropbox is going to try to do something, and somebody could go into my office and mess around with my computer too.
They could. I mean, that's basically what the bar opinions are saying is, we know you're going to do it, and that's the way everything is going. When you read through, we'll email out the opinion letter from the California bar so you can look at it. But it's, be careful, be aware of what's happening, because you have that ethical duty to keep your clients' secrets secret. So, that's basically what the bars are saying. And we've got a citation in the handout to the Massachusetts bar, their cloud computing ethics opinion. And I think that's where all the bars are going. They know you're going to do it. They're not going to bar it. Just be careful with what you're doing at the end of the day. All right, so scanners. Most people here use scanners to scan in their documents? Yes, no, yes.
Dedicated scanners or multifunction devices or?
Multi.
Both.
Both?
Dedicated
There are
scanner.
no good scanners, but
That's
don't
right.
I like to use the SnapScan, the Fujitsu, and then I have a little portable model. And I think this is a slightly older version. They have an even smaller portable now. Most of the scanner companies make, the bread box size and the portable size. These happen to be Fujitsu scan snaps. And this one, I don't even remember how old it is now. They weren't even selling them for the Mac when I bought it. There was an engineer in Japan who was emailing us the drivers that they had in Japan for Macs. And it's a PC version. It's probably 10 years old, and the thing still works great. It's taken a heck of a beating and still scans quite a bit.
But after 5 or so, after you have, 7 or 8 pieces of paper in there, it doesn't go through.
Oh, I've had no problem. I've loaded 30, 40 pages at a time in the Scan Snap, at least in this version.
Mine doesn't.
So you have to check your rollers. The scanners, sometimes, you have to maintain the rollers. I think it's rubbing alcohol?
Yeah, you need to keep them clean or replace them periodically on a little guy like that.
And these are, $400 or so on the internet. It's not a very expensive scanner. I just leave that on my desk. As mail comes in, I just drop it in. I hit one button, and it automatically opens up in Adobe. It saves to a folder that I've created for backup saves, and then it opens it immediately in Acrobat, and I can save it into my client folder and wherever I need it. I scan everything. I mean, all my incoming checks from clients. I have a copy of every check on my computer from clients. If there's any issue, if the bank screws up, I can say, well, here's the copy of the check. You guys have the wrong dollar amount, and that has happened a couple times.
So as everything comes in, you feed it through your scan?
Yep. I feed everything through. So and that way, if I'm doing litigation, I'll keep the paper file that I need for actual litigation and throw it in a binder. But I have a backup, everything's electronic, so if I go into court for a case management conference, I can just pull up my CMC on my phone. I don't even need to take anything with me or preload it on my iPad. Don't even have to take any paper into court with me for a lot of little hearings. And those, again, if you've got a cloud backup, that's available anywhere you go with your phone, your iPad, whatever. And I recommend that if you're loading, if you have Dropbox or SugarSync or any of those that have an application for your phone, one, have a lock on your phone, so they have to type in a code and lock the application itself. SugarSync and Dropbox all can be set with a code, so you have to key it in to launch those. Because if they steal your phone and there's no codes on it, they can go onto the cloud and there's all your documents.
Right, and also send it to secure wipe after 10 incorrect passwords on the iPhone. Otherwise, they just keep trying until they get it right.
Yes.
Is your CMC statement, for example, accessible from your phone because you emailed it or because you've got it on?
Because it's in the cloud. It's an Acrobat document up on my drive on the cloud.
So then you're set up at like your home computer, your client file goes automatically to your...
Everything, I have it on my hard drive on my desktop computer, and everything backs up. As soon as it hits the hard drive, the little wheel goes and it backs it right up to the cloud, so it's always available. So, if my house burns down, everything's up on the cloud and I can download it back to my computer.
Is that SugarSync?
Yeah, I use SugarSync. There's a lot of them out there. There's tons of services, and just take a look at, cost and how much they offer you space-wise, and then the encryption abilities.
Or you use QuickBooks?
Use what?
Do you use QuickBooks?
Yes, but I only use it on my desktop.
Okay, so you don't sync that up with your...
I don't use QuickBooks Online. Originally, it did not work for my Mac. I think it does. I'm pretty sure it does now, but the original version of QuickBooks on the internet only worked on a PC. Yes.
I was going to say, caution with taking the iPad or your phone into a couple of the courthouses, the San Francisco courthouse and parts of the Oakland courthouse. You won't get reception on your smartphone or your wireless if you have the wireless.
And that's why I also have a program, let's see, called, what we got here it is. It's called air sharing. It actually turns your phone into a hard drive, so you can mount it just like a hard drive on your computer, copy documents across, and then this is just a hard drive and you pull it up right off of air sharing. And again, that program is also lockable. Because it used to be if you had an old iPod, you would plug it in, you could check a box to turn it into a hard drive, and it was just a portable hard drive. Air sharing lets you do, and there's a couple other apps like it that let you do that with your phone. And I'm sure there's the same thing on Android. Have you seen any? So, look around if you've got Android, and I'm sure once the Windows phone ships, there'll be the same kind of applications that let you use it like a hard drive and just copy documents right to the phone.
Is there a reason why you do SugarSync?
It's been so long now. I looked at a bunch of them at the time, and I liked the way that SugarSync worked over Dropbox. There was some ease of use over Dropbox that they had.
Because the reason I ask is that I'm in that position where I'm trying to figure out which one to use, and then the ethical stuff, all the stuff that some people say Dropbox is not encrypted when you're receiving it, and it's like all over the place, and you just don't know what to pay.
A lot of it's personal preference is how you work. I mean, almost every one of these online backup services will offer you 10 gigabytes for free. Sign up for free and upload some personal photos. See if you like the way that service works. And I don't know of any of them that don't do that. So, and that's all free. You can get the first 10 gigabytes or so for free. All right, so we got about 5 minutes left. Since we've got another meeting apparently that's going to be coming in here to kick us out. And we're actually almost at the end here anyway. We've covered almost everything on our outline. Do people have any questions? Anything we haven't addressed that you wanted to know about? You're all too stunned in silence.
Do you use a law office management software? What is your?
I do. It's Mac only. It's called Daylight. I've used it since version 1. I think they're up to version 6 now. I actually gave them some comments and helped add some features to it. So they actually have the backwards and forwards calendaring where you can set up, you know, so you put in the trial date and it will backwards calendar experts, close of discovery and all of that. I got them to add that a few versions ago because it was more of a sales management tool, and we've added in stuff for attorneys and other professions, and I like that on the Mac. It works great.
So do you use yours simply for calendaring, or what else do you use yours for?
It's got all of my contacts in it and calendaring, and it also links to emails, so I can have emails that are actually saved in the actual client within the database. Tracks notes, pretty much everything. It's a full sales management tool, so anything a salesperson would want it can do, plus, you know, any kind of contact management. I also use their billing software called Billings that ties in to a certain extent to their contact management software. It's a rather low, the billing side of it is very low end. It's not nearly as full featured as Time Slips, but Time Slips discontinued their Mac application many, many years ago.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? All right, we're almost at 6 o'clock.
All right, thank you.
And if anybody wanted to go up and tour Kirk's office, he's a couple, you can come up and see his office. He's right upstairs, yeah.
See your monitors.
Yeah.
See, you can come see his multiple monitor setup.